Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this program this afternoon. Probably most of you know that next year our county is celebrating its 200th birthday, its 200th anniversary. And I also want to add that next year is also the 50th anniversary of our Historical Society here.
Wow. Wow.
Isn't that amazing? So we really have something to celebrate. Our Historical Society board has been talking about doing some celebrating and some events to commemorate our Bicentennial next year. And the state of Missouri in 2021 also has a 200th birthday. And today our guest speaker, who probably I know has been to more counties
All 114.
and communities than anybody in the state over the last 2 years. He's been at this for 2 years now, since the legislature commissioned this Bicentennial 2021. And now I'm going to have him tell us some things about what's coming off here in our county and our state in the next couple of years. But I want to welcome now Michael Sweeney.
Thank you.
He is the director of the Bicentennial 2021.
Yeah.
He's worked for the State Historical Society, and he's also worked for the Jazz Museum in Kansas City prior to coming back to the State Historical Society.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn this over to Michael.
Okay. So, I'm with the State Historical Society of Missouri. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're headquartered there in Columbia. We've been around since 1898, collecting, preserving, providing access to things dealing with Missouri and Missourians. We are a statewide organization, so we've got offices in Rolla and Cape Girardeau and Springfield and St. Louis and Kansas City. But I'm here to talk to you about a Missouri Bicentennial. So, by way of background, in 2013, the State Historical Society was asked by the Missouri General Assembly to start coming up with ideas, plans, and whatnot for the commemoration in 2021. Society held a series of focus group meetings around the state in 2014 and 2015, in Hannibal, St. Joe, and Rolla and Cape, and around about to see what people might be interested in. Came up with a preliminary set of projects and programs. I came on board in June of 2017, and my job has been to travel around the state, visit with darn near anyone who will spend any time with me at all, about what we have come up with. Partly to get some feedback, but more importantly to build a network of people that when the time comes you can make some things happen. A few preliminaries you need to know about. Preliminary number one, the big takeaway from the focus groups is that no one seemed all that interested in a statewide organization coming in and telling them how to do a bicentennial. What we heard is people wanted to think about local history, local traditions, local culture. I bring that up because it impacts why this kind of looks the way it does. Preliminary number two, we are trying really hard to do something that's truly statewide. Early on in my travels, I was down in Caruthersville, way down there in the boot heel, visiting with a public librarian down there. About halfway through this field, she stopped and says, "Listen, you all do these statewide things and you forget we're down here." And she's right. Things tend to happen along the I-70 corridor. So St. Louis, Kansas City, maybe Jeff City, Columbia. So right, a question for us is, what is something truly statewide? The state of 114 counties and the independent city of St. Louis even look like. Preliminary number three, State Historical Society, love it as I do, we're a pretty academic-y bunch. We tend to work with other historical societies and colleges and universities. But in this instance, we've opened the door widely. I've been meeting with chambers of commerce and community betterment groups and art councils and public libraries and Rotary clubs and just anyone who will give me the time of day, with the idea of trying to get as many people involved in this as possible. The last thing I might mention is probably the most important. As much as we're a history-based organization, and I'm visiting with a historical society, in many ways this is really not just about history, right? It's about Missouri's 3rd century, and why it's still a place you want to call home, and a place you want to invest, and a place you want to keep vibrant. In many ways, that's kind of what the opportunity offers. So all this came together, actually, before I tell you this. So bicentennials, more than anything else, are an occasion to do something, right? Combination of New Year's Day and a milestone birthday all rolled into one. I could start my exercise regimen any day of the year, but there is something about January 1st, a little extra oomph to get something going, right? Bicentennials are when people are paying attention and they're a little more interested in doing something. If those two things are true, right, the question is, what do you want to do with that? So we're trying to use the Bicentennial as this occasion to promote a better understanding of Missouri's communities, counties, regions, people past and present. Hopefully with the idea of thinking about some sense of shared investment in this state's future. I am not so silly as to think at the end of this, you come to some grand sense of one Missouri, or if that's even a desirable thing. I hope you know your neighbors a whole heck of a lot better. I've had meetings in all 114 counties at this point. And Missouri has amazing communities that are vibrant, that are doing awesome things. I think we within this state A, often don't recognize it, and B, we don't spend a lot of time appreciating it. We're a pretty provincial state. We all sort of do our own little thing. So if the minimum thing that comes out of this is that better appreciation, I feel like that's a positive. I hope lots of other great things come out of it. If that's the bare minimum, I feel pretty good about it. To help get this thing going, in January of 2018, a group of other statewide nonprofit organizations and government agencies came together and formed a Bicentennial Alliance. The Alliance is not a governing body. It was a group of us at the time who were like, we'd really like this thing to go well. How can we find ways to work together and try and make some things happen? And it includes all the people you think would be there. It's Missouri Arts Council, Missouri Humanities Council, Missouri Folk Arts Program, MU Extension, Council for Future Education. I'm not going to try and name off all 12, but you'll find them up here and also in the packets that I provided to you. And all of them are working on kind of developing bigger statewide things that hopefully will be of use to the rest of the state. Then in October of 2018, Governor Parson signed into being a Bicentennial Commission. Much like the Alliance, composed of all the people you think would be there. It's Department of Agriculture, Department of Conservation, Department of Natural Resources, Secretary of State's office. And this group is also working on developing some statewide projects that will hopefully be of use to the rest of the state, as well as taking sort of a leadership role on activities, actual Statehood Day 2021 in Jefferson City. That's the overarching history, mission, vision piece of this. What I was hoping to do today was tell you a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on statewide. Hopefully you can think about this in the context of your own bicentennial that's coming up in 2020. Because I'm of the opinion there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Right? There are things that work, there are ways to do things together, and I think that's often the best use of resources. I look forward to hearing more about your own bicentennial, maybe as we have a little bit of this conversation. But yeah, just want to plant some seeds and hopefully find ways to get Gasconade County and its communities involved. What we've done for the moment is we've built a three-legged stool of projects, programs, events, and things. Leg number one would be community engagement projects, right? What are some things we could all work on together and hopefully all benefit from together in one way or another? Leg number two would be local and regional things, right? What might you do in your own backyard? For those of you who have any memories of the nation's bicentennial, this was actually kind of a big piece of that, right? How you might think locally about the much larger event. That's why I still run into flagpoles put up in 1976, right? Leg number three would be other statewide opportunities for thinking about the life, history, and culture of the state, things that we'd like to bring out to communities. Mostly the work of the Alliance and the Commission members. So what we can do together, what you might do on your own, and what we can maybe do for you are kind of the three categories here. But the community engagement projects are actually all up and running, and there's nothing super revolutionary here, right? We're working on a new bicentennial quilt. Man, I knew quilting was big in this state, but I did not honestly understand until I got out and about. We have partnered with Missouri Star Quilt Company up in Hamilton, Missouri. They have agreed to donate the labor to assemble the quilt and the materials to put the quilt together, so the batting and the backing and whatnot. Our job now is to try and get a quilt block from every county, showcasing some aspect of the county's history or geography or a landmark or a person. We really kept the content up to the counties. We are taking quilt block submissions up through Labor Day of 2019. That's coming up real soon. We are taking submissions from individuals or groups, so if you wanted to submit as an entire quilting circle or on behalf of someone else, you could. The folks in Osage County, for example, their quilter was from the Osage County Historical Society, and they submitted on behalf of the Osage County Historical Society. And so what's going to happen is, come the end of 2019, we're going to take our quilt blocks and get that assembled. The idea is to have this quilt touring around the state for the next 2 years. 2 years hopefully providing enough of an opportunity to get it to lots of communities. And we're working with Missouri State Quilters Guild to arrange sort of local shows. I'm aiming for at least one place in every county, if just for a day. That's my goal, to get this quilt back out and about. Again, something we worked on together, hopefully something we can enjoy together. Quilt blocks are starting to come in, slowly but surely. And they range from the abstract to the very figurative, right? So on the left is the one that came from the Osage County Historical Society. The four blue blocks represent the four rivers that run through Osage County, so the Osage, the Marys, Missouri, and the Gasconade. And then the two crossbeams are the two major railroads that came through the Rock Island and the Pacific. The other side over there is the Locust Creek Covered Bridge up in Lynn County, one of only 4 covered bridges left in Missouri. Right, so it can be very abstract, it can be very figurative. We left it really largely up to the counties. All of the quote blocks that we have so far are up on the website, our website, which you'll hear me mention over and over again, Missouri2021.org. But look forward to receiving a quote block from Gasconade County. If you know quilters, there's a quilt flyer in your packet. Please pass it on. So that's the quilt project. We've got a photograph project, also pretty basic concept. Trying to find ways to capture distinctiveness of place across the state. They need photographs we're taking from professionals and amateurs. They need to be taken in 2018 and 2019. Again, but trying to capture like what is a very geographically and culturally diverse state. I mentioned Caruthersville. I was down there about a month ago, right? Flatlands and cotton fields. A little different from where I'm standing now. Or from where I was standing a few weeks after that in Reynolds County. Right, so we are taking photographs in up through November 1st of 2019. And then again, same basic content. We're going to take however many photographs we have, reduce it down to 200, and spend 2 years traveling that show around the state. Again, something we worked on together, and hopefully something we can enjoy together. Got a few random kind of submissions that came in. By the way, there's only been one contributor from Gasconade County. See if I can pronounce his name. Mike Langill. Submitted 5 photographs, all different aspects of the Amtrak next to the Gasconade County courthouse. Up there on the top, the cardboard boaters. I had no idea about this. Shoal Creek down in Newton County, they do a canoe race every year, and they do it out of like cardboard canoes. So there's the cardboard canoes all lined up, and lady finishing off her canoe. And then a beautiful view from the Clay County Department of Transportation, looking out from their building there. All the photographs, regardless of whether they're part of the final 200, will be online. We do have a gallery. I believe there's about 400 photographs up at this point. Love to get that up to about 600. And you can view all of those. Also, the final 200 will be part of a permanent collection at the State Historical Society. It's hopefully available to teachers, students, and researchers for many years to come, right? It's kind of a snapshot of Missouri at this moment. What else have I got? Oh, Missouri Encyclopedia. We're working on a new online Missouri Encyclopedia. Lots of states have done this, lots of municipalities have done this, so we're doing one. Is everybody in the room familiar with Wikipedia?
Yes.
This is not Wikipedia. The desire to build an authoritative, well-researched guide to Missouri history, life, and culture. The State Historical Society has, since 1906, published a journal called Missouri Historical Review. It's our scholarly journal. And that editorial team is overseeing this encyclopedia project. And of course, working on the big topics, right? Harry Truman, Missouri Compromise, Mississippi River. It's going to have, this encyclopedia is going to have its premiere in 2021, but it'll last long past the Bicentennial. But for the Bicentennial, my little particular Bicentennial piece of this, particularly in 2020 and 2021, is to visit with communities and ask the question, what would make this thing look complete to you? Right? Who are the people, places, events, and things that shaped your community, shaped your county, shaped your region? Frankly, because what we think they aren't always what they are. I'll give you an example. I was up in Shelbina, it's up in northeast Missouri, visiting with the folks at their Carnegie Library. Opened in 1917. That library has had 4 librarians over the course of its history. Right?
Oh my God.
Longest one served from 1922 up into the 1980s, right? From what I understand, she had to get permission from her parents to work that job initially, right? A woman named Gladys Powers. But Wright engaged generations of families in that library, right? And I can go anywhere else in this state, no one knows who the heck Gladys Powers is, but for Shelbina, she matters a lot. Those are kind of some of the people I'm trying to get to. Let me give you another example. When I was in Florissant, which is just north of St. Louis, visiting with their chamber, I mentioned I was kind of interested in historic preservation. Like, oh, I got to tell you all about Rosemary Davidson. Well, I'd never heard of Rosemary Davidson. But in the 60s and 70s, she was pounding the pavement, rattling the cages at City Hall, trying to get them to save their historic structures, right? There is a historic Florissant, in part because of Rosemary Davidson. And there's lots of Rosemary Davidsons out there in the world. I bet you were thinking of some right now who have helped keep just the historic structures in Gasconade County around. And what does it mean when I can maybe see a lot of those stories at the same time, in a way I couldn't see them before? I think that's kind of part of the potential of the encyclopedia. So part of my task in 2020 and 2021, actually this is a big pitch to let me come back and visit with you again, is to come up with what are some topics that hopefully find some local writers who are willing to take them on. The editorial team is setting this up so sort of large articles for things of national significance and medium-sized articles for things of statewide significance. But the local and regional topics, my little piece of this, they're looking between 250 and 1,000 words, which frankly is not a tall order. It's a doable thing. I think to get a lot of stuff up to the surface in a way you might not have gotten to see it before. The thing is, the Gasconade County Historical Society will always be the local experts on all of this. This is just a way for maybe a few people to get a little further into some of that. We do have a demonstration site up. You can see it at MissouriEncyclopedia.org. I anticipate the look of the website will change several times over the next couple of years. But it gives you a sense of sort of it gives us an opportunity to play around with some stuff. By the way, you do not have to wait for me to come ask like what would be good topics. There is a suggest a topic button on the website. Go, fill it out. The editorial team is starting to compile what it is people want to see in the encyclopedia. I'm using that to give preference to some things. Let's see. Oh, Missouri Community Legacies. This is our bicentennial time capsule piece, only we're not sticking anything in the ground. The idea is to document local traditions, meaningful places, and organizations and institutions. Contemporary, existent, ongoing. When I say document, we're trying to get people to write sort of a 3 to 5 page book report style paper of this is the tradition, and this is a bit of its history, and this is why it's important to us. 5 to 10 photographs, then any other supplemental materials one might want to add. Newspaper clippings, flyers, programs, maps, interviews, drawings, sky's kind of the limit. And along those 3 lines, so local traditions, right? It could be like a festival or a parade. The example I like to use is I was up in Bethany, up in northwest Missouri, visiting with their chamber, and they were telling me all about Bill Hogan's 4th of July parade. Bill Hogan was this World War II vet, and in the early 90s, Bethany did not have a 4th of July parade. And Bill decided this just could not stand, decorated up his Jeep, got his buddies, they went around the courthouse square and down the park, and that was the first parade. Now, it is the biggest event of the year in Bethany, right? There are more people in this parade than there are watching this parade. I asked the chamber, I said, how does this work? I'm like, well, there's only 2 rules. Rule number 1 is don't sign up, line up. And rule number 2 is horses at the back. That is how this works. Right? I've started trying to do a few examples of some of these things. Up in Kansas City, where I'm from, we've had a Juneteenth festival since 1980. Juneteenth celebrates June 19th, 1865, the day the last group of slaves finally heard about the Emancipation Proclamation. Way down in Galveston, Texas, almost 2 years after the fact. There are Juneteenth celebrations all over the country. Ours in Kansas City started in 1980. So for this, I wrote a brief little history about it, about how it came to be in Kansas City. What did it look like in 2018? So I talked about the Ethnic Heritage Festival and the parade, the events of the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. Got the photographs, got a flyer, got the program, did an interview with the organizers. I asked, how'd you get into this? Right? How'd you start doing it? What does it take to make it go? What would you like to see in 5 years, right? Just a snapshot of the event in 2018. But it could, other things beyond festivals and parades could be a food tradition, right? It was in Marceline, Missouri. They would not let me leave town until I'd had a Dusty Miller. Dusty Miller is this little ice cream treat, and the story they told me is the lady who ran the confectionery 100 years ago, Mrs. Miller. Her husband works in coal mines, and one afternoon he busts in the door and says, honey, I can't get it out of my head. I want the ice cream you do and the fudge, but could you put molten milk balls through the whole thing? She's like, fine, whatever. Dusty Miller, get out of here. Coal dust coming off of him, hence how it got its name. It could be local legend. I was in Sedalia, visiting with the folks in Sedalia Public Library, again, old Carnegie Library. Pam, the director there, was telling me about the history of the library and some of the early librarians there, including this woman named Miss English. I don't know how many of you believe this kind of thing, but when there's a bump in the night or the lights are not working, it is Miss English haunting that library, right? She is just part of the stories they tell about themselves. When I was up in northwest Missouri, I was presenting to the folks at the EMU Extension Regional Council, and I brought this up and said, oh, we've got a time traveler up in Stanberry. Come on now. Look it up, it's a great story. Google that. But right, local legends, right? In addition to these 3, though, it could be a meaningful place, which is maybe a park, or a cemetery, or a building, or a main street. What is a place of significance to a community? And why is it significant? And then the last category is organizations and institutions. So what does a year in the life of your church look like? Or a year in the life of your Rotary Club, or your Lions Club, or your historical society. My colleague in Rolla did one for the Phelps County Historical Society. A year in the life of the Phelps County Historical Society. She wrote a little brief history of it, a little bit about its governance, and then what they did over the course of 2018. Got the photographs, took their newsletters, got their flyers, right? It's a snapshot, a year in the life of the Phelps County Historical Society. And on their own, these things may seem really insignificant. I think when you start kind of looking at them together, right, kind of finding similarities and differences and patterns, I think it'll be an amazing record of this state at this moment built from the ground up. The idea is to build two files, one that stays local with your historical society or library, and then one that goes to the State Historical Society. We will take them in any language. You know who was most excited about this? The School for the Blind in St. Louis. They were like, oh, we do have traditions. And oh, we do have meaningful places and organizations. And you'll take this in Braille? I said, yes. I'd love a print translation, but yes, we will take it in Braille. Right, our goal is to try to see how much of this we can get. All four of these things I have just mentioned do the same darn thing. Right? They're asking communities to think about what are the stories we tell about ourselves? How do we see ourselves in relationship to each other? How do we see ourselves in relationship to the rest of the state? Small thing the State Historical Society is trying to provide is a way to put these things into conversation, try to share them a little more widely. I think meet that objective, that mission we set. One more community engagement project I want to mention. Missouri Humanities Council is doing a Bicentennial penny drive for school kids. We're going to try and get in the elementary schools, collect the pennies, nickels, and dimes from the kids. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure kids still carried pennies, nickels, and dimes. It appears they do. They're going to use those funds to help conserve the state's founding documents, right? Keep those 200-year-old documents around for another 200 years. So they're working with Missouri State Archives and the State Historical Society on that project. That's kind of leg number one of this thing, right? Things we can work on together and hopefully all benefit from together in one way or another. Leg number two would be local and regional things, right? What might you do in your own backyard? We developed an endorsement program where you could get Missouri 2021 endorsement for your project, your program, or event. We let you use the logos and we advertise what you're doing on the website, social media, whatnot. We did this because the starting place for most people is no time, no money, and no labor. That's where most everyone starts. And just as a matter of philosophy, we didn't want lack of resources to be a barrier to participation. So the nugget of this idea, the core of this idea was, oh, you're already doing things. How could you take what you're already doing and give it a bicentennial spin, right? So, for example, in Stockton, visiting with the mayor of Stockton, we talked about the Black Walnut Festival. They've been doing that Walnut Festival for 60 plus years. They are doing one in 2021, whether any of this is happening or not. I was like, oh yeah, that year, we'll theme it to the Bicentennial. We'll maybe do something special on Cedar County history in our city hall. Wonderful. Sue, over at the Poplar Bluff Library, is like, you know, every year we do our Book on the Bluff series, right? They pick a theme, they get some speakers to go with it, some books to go with it. It's like, oh yeah, that year, Missouri history all the way. Wonderful, Sue. But I also tell people, you may not be interested in anything I'm shilling out. That's fine. Come up with your own thing. Most importantly, if there's a way to use this occasion to promote your organization, to promote your community, to advance a project down the road, do it. That's kind of why it's here. Bicentennials are a reason to do something. So when people are paying attention and a little more interested in getting involved, if that's true, what do you want to do with that? And people are coming up with ideas, large and small. DAR chapter up in Boonville is going to do a rehabilitation of the grave of David Barton, early Missouri congressional leader, right? Clean up the tombstone, waste some money, put a new iron fence around it. When I was in Hickory County visiting with the folks at their historical society and the library there, they were telling me about these cabins they had brought from around Hickory County to this park in Wheatland about 25 years ago. And after 25 years, their cabins are looking a little rough. So like, oh, maybe we'll use this moment to rally the troops, raise a little money, and we'll rehabilitate our cabins. Excellent idea. In West Plains, the group I met with down there, it's been about a year, but they were like, I'm hoping they'll still do this. They wanted to commission a play on the history of West Plains, something they could perform at their high school. Love this idea. Up in Moberly, visiting with the folks at their city hall, city manager, chamber, Randolph County Historical Society, they were showing me this mural they did 50 years ago, the history of Moberly. Like, oh, maybe for our project we'll do the last 50 years. We'll bring our mural up to the present. Excellent idea. I think the sky's the limit on what this could be. Like I said, what I'm hoping people get out of it locally is a way to promote or a way to help rally the forces to make something move. What we're getting out of it is trying to find ways to show off what Missouri's communities are doing. And it kind of, again, circles back to the same mission. How do I find ways to promote Missouri's communities, counties, and regions? We advertise these things on the website. Can't see this very well, but if you go to the website, you'll see kind of information for each of these things. The point is not necessarily to get you to us, but to get people back out to you. So the website kind of becomes a funnel. It gets people in, gets people back out. Also do this on social media. A few things about endorsement. There is no cost to endorsement. The application is online. The main criteria, and there's several, you want to look at these, but the main criteria is how does your project, program, or event fit the mission of Missouri 2021, which, as you'll recall, is to promote a better understanding of Missouri's communities, counties, regions, people past and present, right? We kept it really wide open. There's lots of stuff to fit in there. We didn't design this to be hard. It's not anything goes, but lots of stuff can fit into that. The other thing, at least as presently constituted, and this may change in the next year, it's for anything between now and the end of 2021. And that's working out in a couple ways. Some in terms of projects, so I've got a couple like digitization projects. Jackson County and Greene County Archives are doing these digitization projects, so they're starting them now. They hope to have them done by 2021. We've already endorsed them and are advertising and whatnot. It's been other commemorations rolling across the state. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to Gasconade County. We endorsed, for example, the Jefferson County Bicentennial in 2018. Their parade, their expo, their speaker series, because it promotes a better understanding of Jefferson County, its history, its life, its people, its culture. We did it for Randolph County Historical Society as well, when the county celebrated its 190th. We endorsed their big events at the courthouse and the big new exhibit they put up at the Randolph County Historical Society. So something to think about. We want to try and show off, again, what the amazing things are happening in Gasconade County. So please keep that in mind. The third way this has worked out has just been for other things that sort of fit within the mission. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. In April, we had endorsed the Old Time Music and Ozark Heritage Festival down in West Plains. We did that because it promotes a better understanding of that region of the state and its musical traditions. We've had several like that. So that's another way in which that has kind of worked out. And we can talk more about that sort of at the end. The third leg of this thing are other statewide opportunities for thinking about the life, history, and culture of the state, things we're trying to bring out to communities. Most of these are still in formation. A few have made it off the ground, and I want to mention those to you. 4 Years to Statehood is a new set of lesson plans developed by Missouri Council for History Education for 3rd to 5th graders. Dealing with the statehood struggle, free and available on their website. They're working on trying to develop teacher workshops over the next several years to help educators integrate this into their curriculum. Missouri Crisis at 200 is a project of the Kinder Institute for Constitutional Democracy over at MU. They are trying to produce a new volume on new scholarship dealing with the Missouri crisis. They had a scholarly conference back in February, brought scholars in from around the country who are all working on issues dealing with Missouri statehood. They hope to publish that in 2021. Also, if you're on Twitter, they are live tweeting the Missouri crisis 200 years later, almost on a daily basis. I must admit, some days are more exciting than others. But on the whole, it actually is kind of interesting to watch this thing unfold every day, because it was sort of this 4-year process. The Struggle for Statehood Traveling Exhibit is a project of the Missouri Humanities Council. Again, dealing with Missouri crisis 1818 to 1821. It's traveling around the state. It had its premiere at the Washington Public Library in April. It's now at the Henry County Museum. If you would like to see it in Gasconade County and you have space for it, Claire Bruntrager is your point of contact. She is scheduling for 2020 and 2021. She would love to get it around as far around the state as she possibly can. So if you're interested in that, reach out to her. Show Me Prize for National History Day. We're in the room familiar with National History Day? For those of you who are not, it's kind of a science fair for history geeks like me. Every year a theme is picked. I think this year was Triumph and Tragedy in History. And middle school and high school students are invited to engage in that topic. I was always pretty traditional. I did papers, but you could do papers, you could do exhibits, you could do websites, you could do documentaries, you could do one-act plays. The State Historical Society runs the state competition for that. So there's the regional competitions, people go to state and then they go on to the national. On the statewide level, we are offering the Show Me Prize to students who are working on local and state history. We're trying to get more and more people to engage there, not just like in world history. Not that there's anything wrong with world history. The license plates you've probably seen. There's a few others I want to mention to you that I think are going to get up off the ground just to have them on your radar. My patron saint through this whole experience has been Tom Sawyer, meaning I am looking for people to come paint my fence. I'd like to tell you about a few fence painters. Missouri State Library, I believe, is going to do a statewide reading program. Lots of communities do kind of a community read where the whole community reads the same book. Same principle, with maybe a couple books for adults, a couple books for teens, a couple books for kids. Are you all familiar also with like summer reading for little kids? They're going to do an adult version of summer reading that year with prizes and everything. Year-round Missouri titles, Missouri authors. Let's see what else. I believe the Bicentennial Commission is going to try and solicit designs for a new bicentennial poster. Right? Of course, there was one 100 years ago. The idea is to maybe get a couple designs from elementary schools, a couple designs from high schools, a couple designs from colleges. So you'd have 6 designs to choose from, maybe providing a little bit of regional diversity to it that then could be used throughout the bicentennial. We've talked about doing a documentary film project, right? Show me a 5 or 10 minute documentary about life in your community, with the idea that I'm showing them at the film festivals around the state, but also at community theaters and community centers. It's a project I think I'm going to try and push off onto 4-H, because I think it would make a great 4-H project. Though they are starting to get on board, I think they are going to do a youth quilt version of the quilt. I think we're on tour with the Bicentennial quilt and a few other little things. The last one I might mention is we want to do some kind of passport program. You're probably familiar with this idea. State Parks just recently did one. You go to the state park, get your old stamp. Again, because I'm 114 counties into this thing, I have met the coolest people. I have seen the neatest stuff, and frankly, I think everyone should do it. Right? So the idea is to develop something probably in partnership with Division of Tourism, Agriculture, Conservation, State Parks, that would get people around and about. It'll probably live life, initially as an app with maybe a paper version to go with it. We'd like it to be scalable. We'd like to include all kinds of different sites, not just parks and museums, but festivals, farms, art galleries, libraries. I mean, I think the sky's kind of the limit and what that could be. So that's something we're in the works of developing. Before I put a little bow on this, and maybe we have a little bit of conversation, a few other quick things. So this has really been largely a grassroots endeavor, and I mean that in a couple ways. One, it's been kind of just me out on the road. You're still looking at a single solitary human being who's been out and about trying to make this thing go. So staying in conversation is a little bit difficult, right? We have a website, so we can kind of keep the updates, what's going on. But also, it's been a matter of communities going, oh, I know what we can do with this, and making the most of it. Not every community I visit is all that interested, but that's okay. I usually give the example in Harrison County, right? In Harrison County, I visited with Bethany, which is the county seat, Eagleville, then Canesville, which is the smallest, about 100 people. You know who bit the hardest on this? Canesville. They went, oh yeah, you bet we're going to have photographs in that photograph project. You bet we're going to be the ones who send in the quote block. You bet we're going to use this moment to shine. Bethany doesn't want to? Can't make anyone do anything. So it's been communities going, oh yeah, I know what we can do with this, and making something go. So, the other thing I want to mention, I mentioned the website, Missouri 2021, your gateway to all things bicentennial, whether it's stuff we're doing, the Alliance is doing, the Commission is doing, or anyone's doing. We try to use this as a funnel, get people in, get people back out. We are also on social media, Facebook and Instagram. I did not have these before I started this job. My wife was very pleased to see me pull kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I bring that up to say that I'm getting better, so please stick with me. It has, interestingly, become a really important communication tool. I think that's it.
For all these events that we put on, we're going to try to do more things on our website. We do have a new website, and when we have a speaker series or a membership meeting, please check that and tell your friends to check that. And when we have these events, if you would tell your neighbors, your friends and neighbors and family, and bring a guest along, we would appreciate that. And if you made a donation today as you came in, we really appreciate that because it supports our mission. And when you leave today, if you want to think about putting a donation in there, we appreciate that. And I also want to tell you, we're having refreshments, so stick around before you leave and enjoy some refreshments. So thank you for coming today.